So please state your name and how you're involved with the council.
My name is Joshua Gettinger, and my main involvement is that I have a 36-year-old adult daughter living independently named Becky, who has Down syndrome.
Okay.
I'm also a family physician, and in my residency program, I'm sort of intensely involved with issues relating to patients with IDD.
Okay, great. How long have you been a member of the council?
About a year, actually. This is my year anniversary.
Oh, well, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
So as you know, March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. So I wanted to find out, what does being DD aware mean to you?
Okay. This is, of course, with no preparation.
That's how I like it.
Those of us who have DD or have a child with DD, the world gets sort of turned topsy-turvy when that happens. And then we're no exception. So by the time you ask somebody who's lived with Becky Gettinger for 36 years, you're talking to somebody who's sort of, it's just an omnipresent reality. But I think it's, for me, it's more than anything else. It's a matter of, acceptance and an awareness that whoever you are, that there are things that are really special and unique about you, and it's trying to create a world that lets everybody develop their full potential to the best of their abilities.
Absolutely. How can people in North Carolina themselves be more DD aware?
I think it's possible to, a couple of things. We should be sort of more aware of the obstacles that some people face in the world, and how things that we sort of take for granted are very difficult and cumbersome and take a lot of effort. That said, it's a matter not just of taking pity on people because of what they are, but to also see them as people, to still have high expectations.
Absolutely.
Of people and what they can do and what they can contribute, and how they can enrich your life and the lives of others.
So you have a daughter who lives independently,
Yeah.
and that is a very big, that's something we promote a lot here at the council, about independent living, integration, inclusion. So taking that, what kind of opportunities would you want to see for people with IDD in North Carolina?
Where to start? Let's do this in a sort of a life cycle timeline. Let's start with when you're confronted with a new diagnosis in a small child or something like that. I'd like to see parents who are supported, encouraged, and allowed to, and given some help making that transition. I'd like to see people learning to behave as normally as possible. To create a normal, nurturing environment for their children, just like you would with any child. Give them support, understanding, nurturing, warmth, totally accepting love, but also teach discipline and strike that balance between nurturing, discipline, setting high expectations that lets people just turn out as best they possibly can. I want schools that do the same. I want opportunities for people finding their interests and finding what they're good at and exploring that and getting better at it and being challenged to put in the hard work and to be their best. And I want to see in terms of emerging out into the world, I want to see a world that's a little more friendly to that. Getting Becky to the place where she's now, as a life that she loves, involved having supported employment, to where not only not just for Becky. I mean, as much as Becky needed job coaching to kind of, make sure she understood what was expected of her work, the employers needed to know, not just to be sort of understanding and forgiving, but also to be demanding and, tell Becky what she needed to do, so that she got the feedback that made her into probably one of the steadiest and most reliable employees that McDonald's in Madisonville has right now.
Oh, awesome.
So, and then of course the idea that learning to listen and to give people the space that they need to make their own decisions and to participate them as fully as they can. And that's a whole spectrum of things, from people who can't speak for themselves at all to people who are, fully intellectually capacitated but have physical limitations. And being very sensitive and flexible and not having a one-size-fits-all model.
Absolutely. And
there's no such thing.
what myth would you debunk about people with disabilities in the community, in employment, education, anything?
It's hard to put yourself back in the frame of mind. Oh, here's one. Which is partly true and partly not true. But just thinking about where we were when we found out at 2 days old that Becky had Down syndrome is imagining your life turned topsy-turvy by someone who's going to have so much need that you would never have a life. That would become your whole life. Not only, we've been blessed with somebody who's real feisty and spirited and spunky, stubborn and willful and all those sort of things. But it certainly hasn't been, it's certainly been an adventure. And one of the things that I'm explicitly grateful for now, one of the things that I'm explicitly grateful for now is that for all the things that I've had to do that were sort of special and maybe required a little extra effort, the gifts I've been given have been much larger. I wouldn't be here in this amazing place today, North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities, if it wasn't for Becky. She opened that door for me.
Absolutely. And and you're a parent of a child with disability who has independent living, who has a supported employment, which are very big goals for the disability community, not only North Carolina, but across the country. So what would you tell people about Becky that people would underestimate about people with disabilities, that put in the right situation, they can flourish?
Say that question.
The question is, you've seen Becky flourish,
Yeah.
Independent living, has a great job, does best staff at McDonald's. So you've seen what happens when you've given the right supports and you've given the right services.
I've also seen what happens when, there are a lot of hitches along the way. Mm-hmm. The first restaurant she worked at was very tentative and nervous and never quite got over that. She didn't have a job coach that was working with her, which I think would have changed the game completely. Mm-hmm. The final straw was when she dropped the pizza on the floor and served it to the customer.
No.
They said, we just can't do this anymore.
Right.
And conversely, in an environment where people were receptive and somewhat confident to begin with and accepting, and there was somebody around to nurture them through the little hitches that might have happened in the early months, things went very smoothly. Sharon, the job coach, still comes by to visit her every now and again, but it's just for old time's sake and make sure she's still doing okay. It's a matter of, as much as anything, it's a matter of caring. It's a matter of having assembling a network around you that really helps support you in what you want to do. Mm-hmm. It's a little hard. Communities have, even small towns aren't close-knit communities that once were, let alone cities. So finding support, that sort of, I think America needs to kind of recreate a sense of community and neighborhood altogether, actually. Not just for the Becky, but probably for all of us.
For all of us. So I'm going to touch on, you talked about the support of the community that helped Becky flourish. So I'm going to ask you, why is it important for the community to understand about the abilities of people with disabilities, and how can we get there? And I would also ask you to speak up just a little bit.
Edit that one out.
I'll edit that, I'll clip that out.
Tell you a story?
So why,
Can I tell you a story?
of course you can tell a story.
So, when communities get involved, it's not just the individual with a disability that benefits, but everybody starts to benefit. And for me, I think the revelation came in 4th grade when I was sitting down with her classroom teacher. Becky was in inclusive learning situations starting from 1st grade, which was when she was 9 years old. She started 1st grade and just stayed in regular classrooms the whole time. And we didn't know we were doing inclusion because the word hadn't been invented yet. But that's what we were doing. It's a small town. They tended to do things that seemed to make sense. In the 4th grade, I was sitting down with her teacher and a reading teacher and expressed a sense of gratitude that they were willing to take the time for my child when they had so many kids in the class. And the 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Parker, said, "Oh, Becky, I wish I had a whole class